welcome to a new episode from our podcast, Land Talks. Today we have
Jacqueline Amongin, Member of Parliament from Uganda, but also representing Uganda in the East African Legislative Assembly. I chair a subcommittee on environment and climate change, but at the continental level, I'm a Secretary General of the Africa Network of Parliamentarians on climate change.
Oh, that's a lot. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today, Jacqueline.
Yes, of course, it's a pleasure to be hosted on this podcast.
Thank you. So, Jacqueline, as a member of parliament from Uganda, can you share how land degradation is impacting climate vulnerability in East Africa? And what are the most visible challenges in the region?
Okay, so Uganda, East Africa community, like any other countries in the world, are facing the same climate vulnerabilities in so many ways. Uganda is one of those member states in Africa that is very vulnerable to climate change, despite the fact that, of course, you know that in the global emission rating,
Yes.
Africa contributes less than 4%. That's to be exact, 3.6% regards to emission. But Africa gets huge impacts in regards to climate change. As I traveled actually to Riyadh, part of the places in eastern Uganda
Yes.
have been affected by landslides. So people have lost lives. As I speak right now, so many people have been displaced. This used not to be the case for decades,
Yes.
but this is now happening because of climate change. So you cannot talk about land degradation without climate change. So Uganda is facing a lot of challenges. Eastern African community is facing a lot of challenges, ranging from landslides that are affecting hugely the people of East African community. We have droughts. These droughts take really long, and in so doing, it affects on the productivity of the economy, because majority of the people of Uganda are employed in the agricultural sector.
Yes.
And then, of course, when we have rains, the floods, it's even worse, because these floods destroy crops, destroy the farmlands, destroy households. So it disrupts the socioeconomic status of the communities. So climate change affects the people in so many ways, including their land. And yet, at the end of it all, the food basket of the region comes from agriculture.
Yes. Yes. So we cannot separate climate change from land degradation at all.
No, you cannot.
Yeah.
Because in one way, climate change affects our land in so many ways.
Yes.
So you find that everything is distorted, the nutrients are distorted, and even the land itself is fragmented. So that affects indirectly on the livelihoods of the people.
Okay, totally understood. Let's move away to some regional success stories. Are there any inspiring success stories from East Africa where land restoration efforts have effectively contributed to climate change mitigation? We would love to hear about the impactful initiatives in this regard.
Yeah, since you've talked about Africa, so we have the African Union, and the African Union has come up with so many programs on land restoration. But most popular among those is the Sahel Great Green Wall Initiative,
Yeah.
which started in the Sahel region. That's the region within the parts of southeastern and western Africa. In terms of restoration of land, Green Wall Initiative was also adopted by the Summit of Heads of States of the African Union. And this is intended to go to the rest of the African countries. However, there are different initiatives that are being put in place. If you look at the African Union CADAP, Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program, land restoration takes a key center stage. Even in the one that's going to be revamped next year, there's going to be a big meeting of African leaders, different practitioners on agriculture,
Yes.
otherwise called the CADAP framework. Now, the CADAP framework is looking at food, but we cannot talk about food without linking it to land.
Of course.
Because everything comes from land. So restoration remains a key strategy for the region in terms of addressing land degradation, but also addressing climate change. So There are many other initiatives that are being taken at the country levels. Like I know that Nigeria has the Green Great Wall Initiative at the national level, prioritizing tree restoration projects in the country. Kenya has the same. Uganda has the different initiatives that have been put in place through the recently enacted climate change law, which we adopted in the Parliament of Uganda. We also have the National Forestry Authority Act, which also has been emphasizing on extensive restoration of degraded lands in the different parts of the country. So initiatives are in place, but we need to go aggressive. And
Of course.
aggressive means that we have to hype our strategies as a continent, but also not as a continent, as the globe. Because issues that affect Africa affect the whole globe.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was very informative and very hopeful as well. So let's hope that all these initiatives will take place and will do better for our land. So let's move to women's role in restoration. In your experience, what role do women play in land restoration? How critical is their involvement in driving sustainable solutions?
Oh, first of all, if you're talking about restoration, you have to bring women at the center stage
Of course.
and the young people.
Yes.
Because for me, I believe that there's nothing for us without us. I was a youth.
I love this. Nothing for us without
Us.
us.
Yes.
Lovely.
And I was a young person some years ago, and now I'm a permanent woman. It means that even when I depart this world, I will be a woman. But women face a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to land restoration, climate change initiatives that are being put in place.
Yes.
Most times, women are not brought on board. But now we are not here to lament about being brought on board, because as I speak now, I'm a woman, an advocate for women-related issues at the same time. And restoration is not any different. So if you look at the whole gender aspect in terms of restoration, women do cut trees. Women use charcoal for cooking. In Africa, it's women who cook food. It's women who walk long distances looking for water to place on the table or to prepare food. It's still the women who till the land. The majority of the women, actually 75% of women in Africa are employed in the agricultural sector. Meaning
75.
Yes, meaning that
Wow.
they are farmers. However, you realize that only 14% of women in Africa own land. So first, if I'm saying there's nothing for us without us, land ownership must be key. Because if you own land, then you have a voice over that land.
Yeah, I remember this slogan, Her Land, Her Future.
Yes.
And the campaign was very successful.
Yes, her land, our future is a very important, because you cannot talk about restoration when we are not in the ownership of land.
Of course.
So most African countries, women cannot own land. That's the beginning point. So whatever is produced from the farmland is determined by the other members. So meaning that when we are talking about land restoration and the role of women, we need to bring women on board. Accessibility to land is very critical. As legislators, I think we need to look at that direction in terms of legislation, so that ownership of land is really free. And then three, we need to give women alternatives. Alternatives, because if you are saying that you stop charcoal burning, stop degrading the land, because they are the main people who practice deforestation, because they must produce food on that table, then alternatives like clean cooking must be promoted.
Yes.
So that you do not say don't cut trees, but you're saying, oh, hey, by not cutting trees, there's this alternative you can use in order to restore forest land, our forest cover, our land. So all these initiatives need to be brought to the women so that they are able to appreciate. But this should not only end in urban setups. We just need to go to the rural setup, because that's where actually most of the degradation is taking place. Because women in the rural areas go cut firewood to produce food. And that's very dangerous for our restoration campaign. So women should be brought at the center stage. That's why I love that campaign. Her land, her future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I can feel the energy and the power while you're talking about women and about the campaign Her Land, Her Future. Okay, moving to shaping the future of land restoration and looking ahead. How can we collectively shape a land restoration agenda to ensure long term impact and resilience for communities?
Okay, so we need to look at different aspects in terms of restoration
Yes.
and resilience. First of all, we have to carry out awareness for our communities to be able to adapt to climate change. Scientifically, we are thinking that financing is a big issue.
Yes.
When we are talking about climate change, we are talking about restoration of our degraded lands. We need to look at financing for those such projects. There was a calculation of 1.3 trillion towards adaptation and resilience for especially the member states vulnerable to climate.
Yes.
However, at the end of it all, the text wasn't adopted of 1.3 trillion USDs by 2030. Instead, all the negotiations took place and the text of 300,000 USD was adopted by 2030. Even modalities of how to implement, who contributes, and all those details were not very clear in the text. It was also not very clear whether this will come as concessional loans or grants. But for the most developed, most hit countries, we're pursuing the grants because if you look at the emission rate, mostly 3.6% is too minimal compared to the 70% globally. So we are saying the polluter pay principle must be adhered to in terms of addressing adaptation and resilience. So long term, it all starts with financing.
Yeah.
And then we need to put in place policies that are effective, that are implementable in member states. And sadly, we must domesticate all these international instruments. The text that is going to come from UNCCD 16 must be domesticated at the regional and also at the national level for us to have impact because action starts at the local level. So you act locally but impact globally. But in the restoration initiatives, everything is possible.
Yes.
As a legislator, I'm already championing restoration initiatives in Uganda. But most importantly, we have adopted the carbon markets and carbon trading. But also, this must have regulations in place so that people at the end of it all are not able to lose their land on deals which are not very clear. Because they will come and tell you, okay, if you give us this land, we are going to give you this. There must be a regulation. So we are championing that. We've started with Kenya has already enacted a law. And most of the countries are going to look at the carbon market initiative properly so that we are able to come up with a clear win-win
Yes.
target.
Of course.
But otherwise, restoration must be everyone's responsibility because at the end of it all, we must recover, let's say the 59% land, 41% of our land is already degraded in the whole world. That's per the figures. So we must recover that land by doing initiatives in our own way. Member states should be aggressive on this. Regional bodies must be aggressive on this. And this should be the talk that we must walk.
Thank you so much. So I will start from what you have ended now. In your work, what is the undeniable outcome of restoration land in ecosystems you are familiar with? And what is the guaranteed impact that communities or landscapes can expect from land restoration?
First of all, let's take land restoration as a win-win.
Yes.
So if we are to explore communities to aggressively carry on the land restoration initiatives, the benefits even more in terms of economic benefits. Because, for example, if you're giving alternatives in terms of trying to restore our land, so people will go into those alternatives. That means green jobs for people, even for mothers who are in the farmlands. So to me, it's a very important thing for us to keep highlighting on the benefits of land restoration, besides the overall benefit, because at the end of it all, we are looking at the same thing, restoring our degraded land, but also addressing climate change.
Yes.
So that's the overall. But we have to appreciate that there are so many other benefits, including the jobs, including digital. So all these can be explored in these restoration initiatives. I believe that there are huge opportunities that we can harness in this restoration initiative, but also not necessarily only economic. I mean, there are so many of the opportunities that we can highlight to the community so that they champion this cause. But most importantly is to restore our land, because eventually, if we do not take action, then we will perish as a people.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. I don't want this conversation to end, but unfortunately, our time has come to an end. I just would like to thank you so much for being with us today. So, our dear listeners, allow me to thank Mrs. Jacqueline Amongin. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for other upcoming new episodes from our podcast, Land Talks. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for hosting me and having me here.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.